And joining us right now, Evan Macy from PhillyVoice.com, Phillies writer extraordinaire. What's going on, Evan?
Hey, just trying to beat the heat and stay hydrated out there. It's not a great golf day, but we power through.
Right. So, okay, just real quick. Of course, my audience knows that we tape these interviews the night before the show. And you're kind enough. We had some technical issues, so I didn't text you until later in the day, and I appreciate you jumping on. But you were going twilight golfing, is it? You got glow-in-the-dark golf balls? How'd this work?
No, twilight is, in the late afternoon. Everybody tees off. I'm at Bluestone Country Club. Everybody tees off around 4:35, 5:30, and there's 9 holes in different formats. And there's a little FedEx standings kind of thing where they keep track of how you do each week, and then everybody puts $20 in the pot, and then you win money at the end of the month. So I had that today. I played okay. Could have been better.
That guy, I wasn't sure how late twilight it went, because I have heard some courses do the glow in the dark golf ball. My buddy's done it. He hasn't quite invited me yet, but whatever. Golf is golf nonetheless. So good for you to get out there. I gotta ask you this, my friend. We're looking at this Phillies roster right now. How much better did they get after the trade deadline? Noah Syndergaard gets his start. We'll talk about that. But how good, how much better, how much improvement did this Phillies team undergo after the trade deadline?
I think the way to answer that question is you have to have the correct context going into it. I really think that we're in one of the darkest timelines for the Phillies. When you really think about it, they had to fire Joe Girardi in May. They lost the MVP. He broke his hand. They have a starting pitcher on the 60-day DL. All of these young guys, Bryson Stott, Mickey Moniak, none of them are panning out. Castellanos has 1 home run in the last month. And so on and so on. I mean, the fact that this team is somehow in the wild card position right now is amazing. If a few things had fallen in the Phillies on the Phillies side, some of the things I mentioned didn't happen. Maybe they're running away with a wild card spot. Maybe they're in the NL East race. So that being said, the team has what it needs to contend. Everybody just has to be and perform. The center field situation is such an atrocious mess that I think bringing in what is essentially a swap of prospects, sending O'Hop over to LA and bringing in, that center fielder, Marsh.
Brandon Marsh, yeah.
He's one of the best defensive center fielders in the game. If he's your 9-hole hitter and he hits 220 and he improves your defense up the middle, that's a substantial improvement. With Eflin on the shelf, they needed a starting pitcher. I think that, Syndergaard, expect him to slot in as kind of a number 3 or number 4 guy. You can't expect him to pitch like an ace. And if you have that approach, it's definitely an upgrade. And then David Robertson, you saw what he did on Wednesday afternoon. He came in, didn't hesitate, shut the door against the Braves to get his first save, first day as a Philly. So I think they're definitely better. I don't think that these trades are going to swing things as much as a healthy Segura, a healthy Harper, and everybody, and maybe Castellanos starts to get better. Those are the key ingredients for them succeeding, but they definitely added on the margins and they're better for sure.
Would you throw a word like significant at these moves?
I mean, significant would have been getting one of the top pitchers. Everything that the Padres did was significant. Everything that the Yankees did was significant. It's just, if you compare these moves to what they did, the Astros made some really nice moves, the Cardinals, the Mets. I think every single team made a trade except the Rockies yesterday, which is incredible.
Right.
I think the Phillies are probably in the middle of the pack as far as what their was. It's significant in that it gives them depth and it kind of alleviates some very big weaknesses.
Okay.
The floor of the pitching staff is a little bit better. The floor is a little bit better. The defense in center field is a little bit better. If this is 10 or 15 better after the trade deadline, that's definitely a win, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll take that. Now, when it comes to a move like David Robertson, you mentioned he got his first save already. I mean, if you're talking about significance, I mean, that's a guy that might end up being your closer, certainly back end of the bullpen type of guy. Would that be the most significant, or at least looking at it right now from the bird's eye view? Would that be the biggest move that they made?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they don't really have a closer. I've been wondering why Seranthony didn't really get a chance. Seranthony Dominguez isn't really given the chance to have that role. But everybody they've put in there, they haven't really liked. Knubel hasn't particularly good. Hand has been okay. But yeah, I mean, if they have a person who knows his role and is able to pitch in the ninth inning every day or almost every day, then you have Seranthony in the eighth, you have Brad Hand in the seventh. Everything kind of slots into place. So yeah, having a guy who can pitch in the late innings and you're confident in, and he has a good body of work, I think you're probably right. Of the four I got, he's probably got the potential to make the biggest impact. I'd agree.
All right. So we'll agree on that one. All right. Now Noah Syndergaard will get his first start as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. Apparently wearing the powder blues at the time we tape this tonight, Thursday night, in this series coming up, 4-game set against the Washington Nationals. My concern here with Noah Syndergaard is that he seems to have pitched well this season, sub-4 ERA, well, a 3.60, 3.83 ERA going into his first start as a member of the Phillies. But 12 of the 15 starts have come on 6 days rest. How careful do the Phillies need to be with him? What's your overall expectation with Noah Syndergaard now as a member of the Phillies?
It would have been having Eflin on the 60-day DL complicates things because you're really stuck with a Bailey Falter or one of those like marginal minor league guys who aren't quite good enough to be a pitcher in the National League. I don't really like this Phillies team with a 6-man rotation. So yeah, I mean, they're probably going to have to be a little bit strategic. There's an off day, for example, that's coming Monday. And I think, Rob Tomson's going to have to be a little bit creative and maybe throwing him an extra day off when he can. There might be a little bit of shuffling in the rotation when it's possible to do that. But he's going to need to pitch on normal rest a handful of times down the stretch here. And I don't know, hopefully he can. Hopefully this bullpen will allow them to pull him after 5 or 6 innings just so they can have energy for his next start. It's definitely going to be a factor, something to watch. And, we'll see Rob Tomson. This is a new challenge for him, and it'll be interesting to see how he attacks that particular issue.
Do you think it's even a question for Noah Syndergaard as to whether or not he's ready for a somewhat increased workload to be a guy that could pitch every 5th day, or do you think that's just out of the question?
His numbers seem to be respectable, and I think – I mean, I'm not a manager in Major League Baseball or a pitcher, and there's reasons both of those things are factual. But I have to imagine that there's some middle ground between having him pitch on the appropriate day every 5 days, and also limiting, how many reps he gets. So, okay. I mean, I think you could see Syndergaard leading 4-1 after 4 innings, and he threw 65 pitches, and maybe they pull him and go to the bullpen. That kind of thing would be routine, at least kind of to start it out. It's a problem to have. He's a better pitcher than, Kyle Gibson. He's a better pitcher than Bailey Falter. He's a better pitcher than a lot of the guys they've been trotting out there. So it's nice to have him. And he seems a little bit motivated if you've seen him on social media at all.
Oh, boy, have I. Yeah.
So hopefully that also will have him a little bit, to go.
Yeah. Yeah, he's watching it. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's challenging people and their ex-wives. He's having himself a good time. Now let's turn our attention to the bats here for a second, because Nick Castellanos, while Alec Boehm was knocking the cover off the ball in July, and JT Realmuto was having his best month of the season, and Kyle Schwarber hit another 10 home runs in that month, far under the radar was this Nick Castellanos character. The guy that the Phillies said they're willing to spend over the luxury tax for. And he all of a sudden hit 282, which isn't phenomenal by any means. But for a guy that was batting, not very well throughout the rest of the majority of the season, it's something. And over 300 over the last 2 weeks, 2+ weeks, he's about 306. Just hit his first home run that you mentioned in over a month, which is great. How optimistic should I be about this maybe finally being the right time where Nick Castellanos gets hot?
I think, and you can attest to this, doing this in the city, there's a learning curve to being a pro athlete here. Some guys get it right away. Bryce Harper is one of those guys. Looks like Noah Syndergaard could be one of those guys. Nick Castellanos maybe didn't know what he was getting into, as we saw with I don't know what you want to call it, the argument with the fans booing gate, whatever you want to call it.
Kerfluffle, a kerfluffle.
It's a kerfuffle. There's the Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz as opposed to the Joel Embiids. So, Castellanos, I'm hoping that home run will get him going. That month will get him going. There's like instincts are battling when it comes to this, and hopefully, his body of work, shows that he should be able to revert closer to the mean and start hitting more dingers. I think that one of the X factors is playing in Philadelphia is a pressure, and it's not for everybody. And it's tough giving out money like that to a player without knowing if he's a good fit for Philly. And it's a small sample size. It's a little than half a season. He's got a lot more time under contract, so we'll see how that goes. But hopefully he figures out the curve. That would be nice to see.
I do want to ask you one more thing about the deadline, and this goes to a guy that's going to be getting at bats, and his bat certainly needs to come around. Dave Dombrowski said that Brandon Marsh, who they got in the Ohapi trade from the LA Angels, bringing him in here, defensive guy, great, fixable swing, and that's fantastic. Two things on him. What do you think the ceiling would be for a guy like him? Do you think he could have a fixable swing here in Philadelphia? And then the other thing is Logan Ohapi. I found it interesting that it was reported that they weren't going to part ways with any of their top 5 prospects, and they ended up parting ways with at least Logan Ohapi, and depending on where you would rate Ben Brown, he was up there too. But it seems like you maybe could have packaged Ohapi to try to get a bigger name, a bigger talent, maybe somebody like a Michael Taylor who you would have had control of for at least another season after this one. It seems like they overpaid for a guy that still has a lot of work to do on his own game now.
I think that the market for a catcher like Ohapi, I don't know how we're pronouncing it. I haven't said his name out a lot. But yeah, he was their third ranked prospect, and he's absolutely completely blocked by JT Realmuto.
Sure.
There's also there's a lot of catching depth in the Phillies farm system. Rafael Marchand is a name. He hasn't really turned out lately, but he's a guy who was on the cusp of being in the big leagues. And then Garrett Stubbs is having a pretty good season as a backup. The chances of him breaking through in the next 3 seasons before he's 25 years old are very slim in this organization.
Sure.
So him being the third ranked prospect, I think, is definitely selling high. And I think that that's probably a smart move because you never know what's going to happen a year from now. And catchers are, getting beat down, sitting on their knees for 9 innings every day, calling games and getting hit with foul balls and stuff, catching stuff. So if they don't really have any kind of plan for this guy, I don't really have a problem with them essentially swapping him for an outfield prospect who we have more information on, the field information on this guy than the Angels have on Ohapi because he's only played in the minors. So based on that alone, the Phillies obviously were able to say what you want about the Phillies' ability to evaluate talent. I mean, that's a topic itself, but they did think that this guy prospect fit into what they needed more. So from that standpoint, I have no problem with it. It's just the way that baseball trades work. I would really trade the prospects like 9 out of 10 times, maybe 10.
Oh, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. And I said on yesterday's show, yeah, as far as the JC Realmuto blocking him, I get it. But I felt like if you were going to say at one point that this guy was difficult to move, then I would have expected a guy that didn't need as much polishing as a guy like Brandon Marsh still has.
I should say there were some really freaking talented prospects that changed teams over the past couple of days. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost wondering if the position player market, just because of the prices that were being paid for some guys, may have been really high. The fact that it was just a 1-for-1 with a guy who was blocked, I'm okay with it. I think at worst it was an even split, and I think at best could win the trade down the line because this is area of need. And this Phillies team isn't a team that is able to just take the best available. They have to go based on need. So we'll see how he does. Like I said, I think if he hits 240 and plays a good outfield, and I mean, you see that beard. I don't think I'll ever reach beard like that. I mean,
keep working.
He seems like him and Syndergaard coming, maybe it'll make Bryce Harper start to grow his hair out. Could be fun to see. I'm very interested in that kind of thing. But yeah, I think his ceiling is probably, I don't know, Odubel Herrera when he was good before all the stuff hit the fan.
Right.
Hopefully better than Roman Quinn or any of those, Adam Hasley. They've had some really bad luck in center field. So,
oh my god, yeah, they certainly have, and I'm certainly rooting for the guy. It was the only thing they did at the deadline that made me go, that seems odd to me. Not that I think Brandon Marsh is some waste or anything like that, but it's just like that seems a little odd. For all the reasons.
Sorry to interrupt, Mark, but think about the prospects they didn't trade as well for to get March. They did trade a pitcher. They didn't trade an outfielder. They didn't trade a shortstop. They traded a catcher.
Right.
Which I think that matters. That definitely factors in. This guy had nowhere to go.
Right. Gotcha. Now, with all this being said and done, and the Cardinals improved a little bit of there as well with Quintana, for instance, like that. Is this Phillies team a lot closer now? Once you get Gene Segura back, once you get Bryce Harper back, is this team battling for the wild card? Are they set up at this point with getting guys back healthy? Are they set up to be, at least on paper, the best team to have that shot at the third wild card?
So they're playing the Nationals 11 times, and the Nationals' best hitter is Cal Franco now, I think. So between that, and I think they have a couple series against the Marlins, who they've figured out how to beat the Marlins, and the Marlins are also sellers at the deadline. Their works. I think from that standpoint, and I think they have a couple series against the Reds as well. So their schedule is pretty easy. So we're not going to be playing the Cardinals and the Padres head-to-head, thankfully. I think if they did, this would be a different conversation. But based on the games ahead of them, I think they can come out with a better record over the next months than either the Padres or potentially.
All right. I'm all for it. Evan Macy, always great catching up with you. Really appreciate it. Best luck to you the next time you're out there Twilight golfing as well. And here's the rooting hard for Brandon Marsh, of course.
Yeah.
Evan Macy joining us from, of course, phillyvoice.com. Evan, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark.